I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized. Training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Welcome to Hope and Health. I'm Mathew Embry, and today we have a very special guest, Michael Chiasson, who is a motivational speaker, an inspiration, an author, and works with kids across Canada. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
You know, Michael, you're somewhat of a unique guest on our show. Our show is called Hope and Health. Normally we bring on doctors and patients who've overcome all sorts of chronic diseases and things like that. Michael, you're an inspirational speaker. I've seen you. You do incredible work with young people and their parents. Can you first tell us about yourself, what you do, and what your intention in this world is?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I am not the doctor. I don't have all the letters behind my name. And I've had the privilege to watch some of the episodes here, which has been amazing. And I think in every case, there's always going to be some alignment when you're searching to do good, and whatever that good looks like. And for me, you know, growing up, I always noticed that there were moments that I didn't have answers for, moments that you would question things like, why does this have to happen to me this way? And sometimes you get in this rut where it's like, I don't even know how to look out of that rut, right? And the hard part on that is the gift of community, the gift of people. I think two of the greatest gifts that we've all been given is the gift of time and the gift of people. We don't know how much time that we have here, and the people that are around us, they are the people that bring us great joy, or they're the thorns in our side that teach us something that we can learn from, right? So for me, as I was growing up, I started to realize that my story wasn't the only story. And as I started to recognize some of the gifts and talents that I had, I said, what can I do to create a platform to bring that good, whatever that looks like? And it started off one way, and just like with anything, I think it gets refined, hopefully gets better, which lands us to kind of where we are today, where we get to serve students and parents and teachers and business communities across the country to bring, I think, a message that is helpful, hopeful, but also, you know, kind of the mirror is put up to you.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I mean, this podcast is about hope and health. And I think with the work I've watched you do, you really do bring hope to people. And I guarantee that there's healthy outcomes because of that. So for people who don't know anything about you or your journey or your story, what exactly do you do?
16 years ago, my wife and I founded a Canadian registered charity. And we just started responding to serving students, showing up at school, doing events for them, anywhere from 300 to 500 to 1,000 at a time. And you start just kind of sharing a message of hope. We use music, we use anything we can to kind of create a moment. I believe this. I believe that moments have the potential to create movements. And what that movement looks like for anybody that receives information, whether it's a medical report or whether that's a situation with a loved one or a friend. It creates a movement of good, or it creates a movement of this is going to be a challenge. And the more that we just started responding and showing up, not really knowing what we were doing, but we were doing something. And I think that was the key, is that we can wait for the perfect time, or you can create the time and make it and perfect it along the way. So for 16 years, we've been standing on gymnasium floors, theaters, and bringing, I think, a relevant message. And what that means to us is really our story, my story, to share that, to say, like, you don't have to maybe relate to that, but if you can see someone else. So I define hope this way, HOPE, hearing other people's experience. Think about that for a moment. So if I can look at you and I know some of your story and the challenges that you've faced, and I can be in a moment where I'm like, I got to take a step, but I'm a little bit scared, or I don't know if I can do it. And I hear Matt's story. I'm like, wait a minute. If he can do it, maybe it's possible for me too. And that kind of thread of what we continue to see in the beginning stages of when we started this, it had legs, it had power, it had the ability to actually start creating change. And then that set us up for me to ask the question, is what we're doing actually impactful? You know, we can have a great inspirational message or motivational message. And I asked the kids this quite a bit. I said, do you think I'm a motivational speaker? And they kind of know it's a trick question. But there's always one that says yes and one that says no. And I said, well, I am to an extent. And what I mean by motivational speaker is I mean the motive. What is your reason? What is your purpose? What is your why? And if we can help unlock that for you, and I have no agenda with that, I can't assume or expect to know exactly what your life is like. But if hope is the ability to hear other people's experience and create a change for good, then I've got to have the courage to be able to share where I am. And you and I know, and I'm sure many of the people watching this, if you could go back 10 years to your 10-year-old younger self and have 5 minutes with that version of you, do you think your life could be better now because of that? I think we can all answer yes to that. But at the end, we can't change that. But what it shows us, though, is the power of our story, the power of the wisdom. What is wisdom? It's evaluated experience. Not just we go through something and don't think about it and learn from it, but the evaluated experience. And that, I believe, now is needed in our world more than ever, to be honest with you, from the students that we serve, to the parents, to the organizations that we get to speak with. And that's why being here today, and just the name of this podcast, of this show, is so powerful to me, Hope and Health.
Well, the one thing for me in my journey, what I try to do by sharing my story is I'm trying to motivate others to have the best life they possibly can. Whether they do it or not, it's totally up to them. And I think I want to focus on the word motivation here for a little bit, because one of the key things, again, I try to do is motivate people. That's what you've chosen to do with your life. So why have you chosen young people to try to motivate them in the direction of good? And why is it so important to speak to people at a young age?
I just look back at my own story, and I remember that the stages of where we begin to shape our worldview, to shape, maybe that's a little bit bigger. Let's like zoom it in, focus it in, ourselves, right? I believe that one of the greatest obstacles that any of us will ever have to face has not as much to do with what happens to us or the experiences that we go through, as much as it is the reflection that we see in the mirror. I can have people tell me all the time, Michael, you're doing a great job. You've got this. Everything's good. You're going to do great things. And it's encouraging to hear that. But it's one thing to hear it, another thing to believe it. And that, I believe, that reflection is that's one thing that I'm noticing as I get older and we continue our work that we're doing, is learning the wiring here, the mindset, the heart set, the health set, all of the things here. The more that we can develop that, the better we get to see the miracle of the story that is within.
So when you go into these schools, what types of things are you seeing with young people today?
It's always interesting when I walk into a school, because the audience that we have typically doesn't have a choice to be there. So they haven't paid an admission ticket, right? So what I try to do in the very beginning is to disarm them. And I say, what is some common ground that you and I can find right now, whether you want to be here or not? I think one thing is we're out of class for the next hour and 15 minutes, and we get a little bit of a breather. And I will say this at every event. My job here is not to get you to believe what I believe or act how I act. My job is, the hope of my job is that we walk out of here more inspired than when you came in. And I said, if we can rally around that idea, there might be one thing that you can hold on to today. And what I notice at the events that I go to is that there's people that have questions, but they don't necessarily have the courage to ask them, because we've somehow become almost a generation that we have to know everything. Everything's at our fingertips. But whatever pops up first becomes, I guess that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And so when we can kind of challenge those viewpoints, and not to say, see, I was right, you were wrong. It says, no, like there's a bigger story here. And I want to help people get to that place. And again, the end goal of that is the reflection that they see in the mirror, the miracle that they are, the gift that they are, and what they have to offer the world needs now.
Now, with all the people you've seen and the stories you've encountered, why do people need to be motivated? Why do you think that people can't kickstart their own lives in a certain direction?
I think it's like with anything. If you start working out, it's sometimes easy in the beginning. You make a decision, you get fired up. But then over time, it's like, if I miss a day, right? And you miss one day, it's like, well, I guess I can miss tomorrow, and then the next day, and all of a sudden the commitment begins to be less valuable to you. And I think for all of us here, we can give the prescription to other people of what we think should happen. A lot of times we're not willing to take our own medicine. But at the end of the day, the decision is yours. The decision is mine. And that is one of the biggest truths that I think all of us are sometimes a hard time with, is that the choice is ours right here and right now. We've decided to be where we are today. Now, certain things have happened beyond our control, but where we go from here. And that's why I think sometimes a motivation to push us into maybe a different direction, to say, yes, this is possible. Well, it's not comfortable. There's a challenge.
Now, Michael, you go into schools, organizations. What you're trying to do is inspire change, and change for good. Now, you said that there's challenges people face the moment they hear this, or the moment they have to face this personally. What do those challenges look like, and how do you get people to overcome them?
That's a great question. I actually learned this from reading a book by a guy named John Maxwell. And this what kind of really kick-started maybe some legs and some anchors to the message, which was, we change when we hurt enough that we have to. In other words, there's no option, right? You break your arm, you've got to change, right? The second part was, we change when we see enough that we're inspired to. And that's a lot of our work, is that, they see something and they're inspired to maybe make a change. The third part was, we learn enough that we want to. So now you have information and you actually want to do something about this. You're moved to do something about this. And the final part was that we receive enough that we're able to. And those were kind of the four pieces. When I'd heard him write about this, I said, whoa, that's kind of what we've been thinking about all the time, but he put language to it. And I think with all the different areas that we try to bring in the communication world, I'm noticing that everybody's kind of critical moments in life, or monumental moments, challenging moments, changing moments, you can probably land on one of those four things. And as I mentioned earlier, we can find the reason for that. We can have information about that. Even for any of your audience that might be watching right now, whatever the report might say, we're going to have to change because of that. But the transition of what's next, and we go back to what we talked about earlier, is the motive and the motivation for that. And sometimes having that person on the side with you saying, I'm with you, that is a powerful moment. You think about a kid that's going through one of the most difficult moments in their life, that they don't even know how to communicate, articulate the way that we would want them to articulate. But to have that one champion, that one parent, that one mentor, that one coach right by them, just saying, hey, there's no right or wrong here. I just want you to know that you have me on your side with you.
Now, when we think about this, we apply this to, a lot of the issues we talk about with chronic health. No question. When I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, we have so much of our audience who's diagnosed with something. In that moment, that's when the pain hits, and that's when change has got to happen. So when you talk about this, what would you say to people who maybe don't have that support structure beside them? Like, if we know that change comes with all this struggle, how do you get someone through that?
I think that's what we're afraid to maybe look at, that can actually be a beautiful thing, is the struggle. It is sometimes the part that we suffer for. That's like anybody that you love deeply and you care for deeply. When they hurt, what do? You probably hurt too, right? And there's a connection in that. And so my words aren't meant to be just, let's feel good and let's go out there and change the world. I want to make it real. So if you face something and I'm facing something, I look at that pain point, and I might not be able to understand it as much as what you're actually going through. You can try to articulate it to me. I won't feel that like you feel that. But what I know is the things that I've had to struggle through with loss and pain and questions and uncertainty. And you begin to flip that to say, that can now be a motive. So whatever I'm going through right now, who do I know that might be struggling as much or even greater than me? And so for the next 10 minutes, or this next talk I'm about to give, even though I might be exhausted, tired, or maybe feeling insecure that day, whatever my story might be, if I think about that person, it gives me a motive to say, I'm going to show up for them today, right? I'm still in the story. Don't misunderstand that part. But I'm using that pain point or that struggle to actually have fuel within me to take that one more step. right? And sometimes looking at, being down the road is sometimes overwhelming and impossible for many people in certain times in life. But can we look at the next step and then the next step, right? We want everything here and now, but if we miss almost the journey and the miracle of that journey, we miss looking at the stars and just being amazed at look at the gifts that we have right now in the midst of all the things that might be going in a way that we wish could be better.
And what have you found in your life? What challenges have you faced that you've had to implement these ideas to move forward?
I think it started at a young age. When I was born in Houston, Texas, to two parents that I think loved life. And my dad was a musician and my mom was a roadie. And I came into the world maybe not by intention, but here I came, and they decided when I was coming into the world, they got to get married, they got to do all the things that you're supposed to do, so they look the part. And that's really where, when I entered into the world 43 years ago at this point, that life was going to invite me to see some things that were going to be challenging. When I was 3 years old, my mom walked out on me. In our family, due to her reasonings and struggles. My dad raised me for the majority of my life. My mom's struggles really began there. She ended up serving a prison sentence, and since that has been kind of in and out of the corrections. And my heart for that was always, I couldn't understand it. Was I the problem? Was there something wrong with me? And then I started to recognize and realize that, have I even stopped to ask and think about what was my mom's story? What were the things that brought her to the place to feel that she had to do the things that she had to do? And, throughout high school, that was a challenge. I've been playing music professionally since I was 14 years old. I kind of passed on from my dad. I'm very grateful for that. And you kind of start that journey. You just start. You take the first step and you start discovering, hey, I can do this or I can do that. And the biggest thing I've learned up to this point in my life was, if you don't know what it is you're supposed to do next, find somebody that knows what they're doing, that you can relate to and you can connect with, and help them. Help them in that moment, right? Whether it's just to be an encourager to them, to help them write, so whatever it is. And all of a sudden you'll begin to discover your voice and your place. That's what I did. After high school, I moved to Canada. I went to a school and toured with an artist for 5 years as a guitar player. One of the most incredible 5 years of my life, because there was stability at that point. The family that I was with, they loved each other, and I had never really witnessed that on a day-to-day level. My dad did a great job to raise me as a single father, did the best that he could. But that's when I met my wife, Melissa, on that tour, and that's where life began to invite me to see something of time and people. I told you the two greatest gifts in the beginning, put into focus faster than ever. When I saw Melissa, the first time I saw her, I realized, wow, if there's even a chance that I could be together with this person, life would be amazing. Like that childhood dream of the one day, the one person. And I'm grateful that she saw the same in me. And when we got together, that's when we found out that my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And that for me challenged the core of who I am. Because I looked at her life, and judging might be a bad word for that, but I said, I know enough about you in the time that we've gotten to know each other to know that you haven't done bad things. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I was trying to compare, our good versus, each other. And what I was frustrated about was, how come I'm the one that can't be sick? How come I can't take that from you? I'll bear that for you because I deeply love you and I don't want you to suffer. But I realized that wasn't mine to have to suffer through. It was mine to be able to walk with. And that moment for me, brought me off the road. I stopped traveling and speaking. We kind of planted our roots here in Alberta. And I wanted my focus. That's how we started our marriage. And I'm thankful every day that we were able to catch the cancer in time. And after, I think it was a year and a bit, she had her final kind of testing, and we got the clearance that she was now cancer-free. She still has to, take some medications for the rest of her life because of that. But it changed. Everything changed. And I couldn't control what that change was going to look like, but I could adapt and make a decision of what that change was going to look like moving forward for us.
And I think that's one of the key points I want to discuss with you, because when you share your story, and I think one thing I think we both can agree on is everybody's got a story. And I think that, as a filmmaker and having been in the MS space, which is a specific space for years, and outside of that, interviewed thousands of people, everybody's got a story. By sharing our own stories, we can help other people. When you meet someone, what are those kind of key strategies you can give them to keep going? When they've hit that rock bottom, they've hit that diagnosis, they've hit that challenge, what is that one thing that you can say, you can hang on to this?
I find myself asking the question, what do you want? What do you want? And they'll kind of think through some answers, and then I'll ask it again. I say, what do you want? Really? And we start to recognize that we've got to define that. We've got to figure out if we are here, and right, that's where we are, and where we want to go from here. The decisions that we make determine the story that we tell tomorrow. So what decisions do I need to start making? What are some things that, if this is the next step, it might not be the end goal, but the next step, whether it's a restoration in a relationship, whether it's to start something, even though it's not ideal, it might be no for now, but that doesn't mean forever. But if we're going to start somewhere, what do you want?
Michael, I want to talk about specifically the practice that you do. I've seen you work personally. I've actually watched you with students. And, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today is because childhood trauma for people with multiple sclerosis is a very real thing. Scientific studies show that a large number of people who end up with MS have experienced significant childhood trauma, something very difficult for a lot of people to talk about. It's becoming more, let's say, okay to talk about it in public, in the public sphere. You deal directly with young people. For me, there's a connection here. Can we talk about going into schools, dealing with young people, seeing trauma at this age, and the steps you take with them to help them?
Yeah, that's it is real. And I've noticed that in the schools that call now. So typically we deal a lot with junior high and high school. That would kind of be our main area. And just to give context on this, we started to get elementary schools, and not just elementary schools, but the younger kids of elementary schools. They were inquiring for us to come and speak. And I said, that we typically work with, junior high and senior high. I said, why am I coming? And the amount of kind of pain and hurt and trauma and navigating that is showing up at earlier ages. And I'm not a professional in this area, but I do see what we see. And so the approach on that is, number one, is that they're seen. We're here together. I'm not here to speak down with you. I'm here to create a moment, and we're going to do it together. Right? So you're inviting them into a story that might look a little bit different. And even if it's for that moment of someone that is experiencing trauma or has gone through traumatic moments that we don't have answers for, right? We want to say, okay, this and this and this, almost as if it's logical. But how we react to life isn't always logical, is it? I mean, sometimes if you have your heart beating for someone for the first time, it's not logical, maybe in your personality, just to get up and go talk to that person, but something moves you. And that's what we try to create within these moments, is that moments create movements. And I understand as much as maybe anybody that might say, well, you just do events and then you move on. But the connection with a person in an environment like that, and in a moment that they might be feeling life is too overwhelming, showing up for that. And that's who we show up for. And there's always a couple that will come up and say, you have no idea what I've been going through. You have no idea what I've been struggling with. You have no idea that I showed up today not knowing if tomorrow was going to be reality for me. And that for us, and we have our team, and we make sure that when we hear those kind of things, that we give them the support that we can if they choose to receive it. But the trauma that comes with anything is, now we have this information. And like you mentioned, it's become more okay to talk about. Now that we can talk about it, the next part is, what can we do about it? Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't know what you have found in that. And you could probably teach me a lot, because information that you've had from your own journey to doing something about it now. And it's not getting to the end where it's all perfect. It's like next step.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to talk specifically about the practice that you do, because I did witness it. And so for people who, have not seen you and when you show up, what is that unique practice that you do with young people?
This all came out of me wanting to know if what we were doing was actually helpful. Like, was it actually making a difference for the people that were doing okay and the people that were struggling? And because they didn't pay an admission to come see me, that wasn't a point of understanding. And so what I did after during one of the breaks at an event, I had some paper and some pens, and I wrote at the top of one of the pages, I said, things I wish my parents knew. And the reason why I think that statement came to me is because we have this ability and this desire that from the very beginning of our lives, we came from someone, right? And that connection is there. There can be traumatic stories to that. I got that story as well. But when you can begin to share something from a place that is so personal and so real, sometimes you're not just going to share about that. You're going to share things that are even deeper. And my practice on this, I thought to myself, well, if this has been helpful to this people that we're serving right now, they don't have to write this, number one. Number two, it's completely anonymous. I don't want your name. I just want, if anything has been helpful, I would love to be able to learn a little bit about you.
So in this practice, so we're clear, what you do is you allow the students, you give the students pen and paper, and you just allow them to write down things they wish their parents knew.
That's it. And we started doing this typically in a break. So we didn't really create time for this. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they literally had to take their time that they could be hanging out with their friends or talking or goofing off, whatever, and literally would physically walk up and grab paper and start to write. And that shocked me a little bit. I said, oh, there's an exchange here. And this exchange is, I think there's something pretty valuable here, important here, that we can then take and share with other people. And that's what I then share with them. I said, now your story is going to be a part of helping other people. Now, it might not fix your particular circumstance, but your story might help someone else that might be in the start of what you have gone through or in the middle of what you're going. But because of you, the powerful witness of your words will have the ability to maybe help someone else.
Now, what kind of things were people writing? Were they writing calls for help? Were they writing good things, bad things, scary things?
I mean, it goes everywhere. Everywhere from, I wish my parents would know how much they mean to me, how much I want to spend time with them, how much I see their struggle, to the point of how much your divorce really impacted me, to the point of, I never knew how to tell you this, but I've been struggling for a long time and locked myself in a room because I don't want you to see me as the kid that I would be a failure to, right? I mean, everything. And the lighter ones of, I just wish my parents knew I didn't like carrots, right? Like it's the whole kind of story. But the great thing that we're learning too is that there's optional information where they can kind of share with us their age, and where you can kind of start to see trends and themes that kind of happen and questions that are going on. So if we think for a moment that they're just going to figure it out, they will. But if we don't have the ability to step in and kind of speak direction and hope and clarity and connection with, I think we're going to miss an opportunity. No different than someone with a medical situation that, oh, we're just going to wait and see. Well, I want to know the information, and that's the beauty of what we're doing, I think, with the content that we received, is being able to share that, not with an agenda. And this might not be your kid, but if it's not your kid, I will probably guarantee it's probably one of your kid's friends that might be going through something like this.
And how did you bring that together with the parents?
So what we started to do is every school that would bring us in, we would offer a complimentary parent night to learn the top things that we were learning that students were sharing with us. The response was good. And I said, as long as one shows up, we're going to just share the information because we can talk about it now. And the themes that would happen, everything, from mental health to the struggles of trying to expectations. Expectations is a huge one. It's like, I don't even know what the expectation is. And so we start doing things that we think are going to impress mom and dad. And there's just that disconnect. And that was the hope of these nights, is not to tell you what to do or tell you how to parent. Like, we're in the throes of that right now, our family. But it's at least to share what's been entrusted to us with as many people as possible.
Now, with all these stories that you've had, I've also seen the parents have read them. The parents start to read them, and this is a very emotional process that goes on. Can you explain to the audience because I've seen with my own eyes, and it's pretty shocking when you see the young people revealing these things they wish their parents knew.
I think there's just a deep desire for all of us is to connect to whatever the struggle might be for the people that we love. If you knew that, I might not be able to fix that for you. But for my kids and my family, if we knew that, I'm probably not going to respond perfectly. I'm probably going to react if the information is hard for me to hear. Because a lot of times, one thing that we notice with a lot of the letters is some of the kids that need help have shared with us that the reason why the kids can't get the help is because the parents feel that it's a reflection of their parenting, right? And that's so far from the truth, because kids are away from them so much more in a day or in a week at school or whatever else. But I noticed that when the parents read these letters, and they will stay there for 20, 30, 40 minutes after the events, just going through and just looking at the letters in person, I think it's just almost like that mirror that comes back up. And it's not meant to make us feel bad, but it's meant to let us know that sometimes to start, you just got to take the step. And one thing that I think is worthy to kind of just share right now is that our kids, and many of us, even as adults, only share and talk about what's permitted and allowed to be talked about. I want to say that again, because I think it's really important for us to get this. Our kids, and ourselves included, in certain environments, will only share what is allowed and permitted to be talked about.
So when you see it real time, when you see a parent who's reading that letter, suddenly there's massive change. What is it like for them in that moment?
I think it's eye-opening, not just eye-opening, but it's heart-opening. And I want to preface this like with the kids, when they know that they were going to write this anonymous letter to us, for me to say, you're actually going to write this and then give it to your parent right away, I think that would be a little bit much for them to be able to answer this honestly. So I believe we created a safe and doable way for them to say, hey, this is going to be shared with me, and then we're going to be able to take this and share this with others without your name on it. So they're safe to begin to share. And I say that because it's a start. It's a start for them to say, if I wrote it, well, then maybe I might have the courage to speak it. And so just like when the parent reads these letters, and I brought some with us today because I'm always fascinated by these letters, and this is a 17-year-old female that said, I just wish my parents knew that I don't want to pursue the career that they want me to pursue. And I wish my parents knew that I hate disappointing them. So I do everything that they want me to do. This is a grade 12 girl, right? And her whole life has been around this, that she maybe is now beginning to articulate. Another one is a age 17, grade 12 male that says, I feel like I have no direction and am terrified to go through life blind. In other words, directionless, right? And so I think with the content that we receive, number one, I think the parents know that they're not alone in this. And I think with anybody, even with your audience, and what you're doing here is you're bringing this message and awareness that you're not alone in this. And I think that even for a moment is enough to create breathing room for anybody, that it can especially connect with something that is very personal and real that you're actually going through. And I think that's for the parents and what we're doing, for my own story and with what we navigated with my wife and the loss of our first son, of feeling that tension and that uncertainty of like, how are things going to look after this? Well, we don't know it in the moment. And people ask you this too, and me this, how did you get through it? Well, the only thing that I can tell you is if I had known what we were going to go through, I don't know how to answer that question.
Is it fair to say that everyone's life experiences a catastrophe?
I think we have them. and it's what we do with them. You know, you can have the most difficult moment happen, and you have somebody that can all of a sudden just recognize that little moment of beauty and good. And, you know, we've kind of read lots of the research of, you know, people that are on their last days is, you know, if you could change something, if you go back to something, what would it be? It had nothing to do with the chase that we're after typically in life of, you know, success, credibility, wealth, whatever people define that as. It was the people, because the people that you've been entrusted, if you allow them to continue to be with you, you have the right to also say, I need some space. I've got to navigate this one, but to let them know that whenever you're ready, I'm here. That's a powerful, powerful, powerful invitation. And it's hard though. It's hard because if we're feeling as though we don't know how to continue, we want to figure it out first.
You said two very powerful words that I strongly think need to be thought about when you're dealing with crisis or a problem or with chronic illness: decision and choice. I think that taking those two words very seriously can quickly get you out of a victim mentality that, you know, something bad has happened to me, that I can't get out of this. But the reality is you can get out of anything with your own choices. Would you agree with that? And in particular with what you've seen?
One of the greatest things I love to tell and remind myself and tell almost every audience is that your track record for getting through bad days from the day that you were born up until today's date is 100%. You've already proven to yourself that whatever information you have received, whatever diagnosis, whatever hardship, whatever setback, you've already proven to yourself up to this point. Has it been hard? Sure. But what were the decisions and the choices that you made in those moments that helped you get through that next step? And sometimes those, the evaluated experience, which wisdom, I think is the gift that we've been given to be able to look back on and just remind ourselves sometimes of how powerful we are. So I believe this, that the most powerful thing in the world is a mind made up. When you make your mind up to do something, I think the majority of the time, when you truly make your mind up, you are going to find a way. You're not going to make an excuse. You're going to find a way. Here's why I think it's the most powerful thing, is because you have the ability to change your mind. You have the ability to change your mind. So if somebody gives you a prescription or a direction or leading you down this way, and because you might respect them or they might have what you think you want, and you recognize, no, that's not where I'm supposed to be, you have the permission and the ability to change your mind.
I also want to talk about purpose. One thing that I've thought a lot about is that, say, in my own journey, I would never have thought that being diagnosed with MS at 19 would have gotten to me where I am today, that I'd still be talking about it, that has created this platform for me to be able to hopefully help people. So the most, say, traumatic or the most difficult thing for me became my greatest strength. Listening to you, sharing your story, you seem to be doing the same thing. Sharing your story to inspire others, to springboard them to a better life. Is it possible that for all of us, our greatest trauma is actually our greatest strength if we can channel it in the right way?
Yes, I do believe that, you know, the setback for you and for me became this setup that now, but it hasn't been easy.
No.
Right?
And when newly diagnosed people contact me, I sometimes tell them, you know, you've just been given a gift. You just don't know it yet. Mm-hmm. That like, if you can heal yourself, it's all eyes on you now. Everyone in your life is watching you. You heal yourself, your story will spread. Mm. And you'll just by simply healing yourself, you'll heal others. You don't have to do anything else, but just do the work to heal you and share your story. Does that resonate for you?
I think that's a really great thing that you shared there, because it goes with almost every aspect of life too. A relationship, a friendship, anything like that. Like, the best way that I can be the best husband or the best father is to what? Be the best version of me. Now, I don't like what I see half the time that I got to change or, you know, make different or make better, but you're right. It is a gift. Even more so those that are watching this and following you, because you have championed and have carried it. And I would say for some, it might be like, I can't do that. I can't do what Matt did. That's impossible. I would want to know, like, what do you tell somebody like that? Like, because I've known you long enough now here and there to say, like, the same version of you and the passion and the drive hasn't changed from 5 to 8 years ago when I met you. And how do you keep that?
I tell people, I try to share, it's the little things. If you can win the day by making your bed number one, you're already down the road. And that's, I try to share that part of my journey and say technique as much as I possibly can, that it's winning the small obstacles will eventually get you to the big ones. And to also realize that big challenges are always going to come, whether you like it or not. And the longer you're here, the bigger the challenges get. Therefore, the more work you got to do. But I'm not a motivational speaker. You are. So if someone's watching this right now and they need the motivation to change their life for better, to become a better person and to make the world better around them, what's the first step you'd recommend?
What do you want? What do you really want? And get brutally honest with that. Get brutally honest with that. And the reason why is because you can change your mind on that. But I would encourage anybody, you're probably going to answer that question around what you've seen in someone else, right? Maybe it's what they have or what they've been able to accomplish or what they can be able to do. And I would really encourage anybody to start to dream again, even in a place that seems almost impossible. Write it down and you look back on what you wrote in 5 years and you'll be amazed at how much you've actually accomplished.
Michael, thank you so much for speaking with us today, and congratulations on the work you're doing. We live in a world that needs inspiration and it needs motivation. And for people watching this, Michael's also got a book out, Things We Wish Our Parents Knew. Inspiration and some motivation. Thank you for watching Hope and Health. Thanks for joining us. Hope and Health is made possible through generous donations. To learn more or support the show, visit mshope.com, where you'll find free science-based resources.